Welcome back. Let's talk economy. Dr. Paul Alaje is our guest right here in our Lagos studio. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Dr. Paul is the chief economist at SPM Professionals. Let's begin with the numbers. The MPC has finally met, and the MPR retained at 27%. And you see all the CRR, the liquidity ratio, of course, the asymmetric corridor seemed to me like, don't come here, go that way, expand the economy on plus 50 minus 45, 450 in terms of basis points. So just help us interpret the meaning of the decision of the MPC yesterday retaining the interest rate.
Okay, before the decision were taken, three things were possible. One is to increase rate. The second one is to reduce rate. The third one is to hold rate. Many people think there was no decision because MPC held rates. It's actually one of the possible decisions. For many analysts, one would have thought that MPC would reduce rates, which was the decision. But what everybody agreed would never happen was to increase rates. Why? Now, why are we taking this decision? Nigeria uses inflation targeting, and MPR will help us to target the kind of inflation we want to have. As of March, inflation was as high as over 30%, I think nearly or above 34%. But when the numbers for March, April were reported by the National Bureau of Statistics, we had adjusted the base year. Then after that, we saw inflation drop by significant 10%. However, the NBS boss has told us that the reason for this reduction does not necessarily mean prices has reduced on the average by 10%, but because Nigeria is rejigging the basket, that was why we have 10% reduction in inflation. So that may not have direct impact. Now we have watched this number from April, May, June, up to November. And between September and October, we have seen a 200 basis point reduction from 18.02% to 16.05%. That is huge, that is significant. So if we have that kind of reduction, one would have expected that, ordinarily speaking, what MPC should have done is to also cut rate. And I think that was what was in the mind of many at the time. And I have such thoughts too. So, but when you look at it, what is really driving reduction in inflation? There are several things, but three majorly. One is stability that we have seen. And by stability, we need to look at what is happening to our reserve. Our reserve is over $44 billion. We have not done that, in the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've seen that major improvement in the reserve. Number two, what is happening to what has happened? What has the reserve helped to do? Well, it has achieved stability of naira. Up until recent, now Nigeria was declared a country of particular concern, because that's also had implication in the decision yesterday. In the previous MPC, there was no such comment or designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. So Nigeria, MPC could reduce. But now that Nigeria is third country of particular concern, what happens to exchange rate? For 1,430 naira to the dollar, we saw as of yesterday, 1,453. There are some marginal increase in what exchange rate was. I don't know if that has improved or reduced. So that on one side. On the other side, we also saw that some food item has reduced, no doubt. Even though real estate and cost of rent increased, that's household rent increased, cost of transportation has not significantly also reduced. But most importantly, Nigeria, like Ghana, enjoy what we call the base year effect. When you change the base year of your inflation to a year that is not necessarily with economic prosperous, make the economy to become prosperous. You are going to see reduction in inflation when you are comparing that with an improved year. So clearly speaking, 2025 were relatively better compared to 2023, 2024, because those were when the policy were originally made. One is subsidy removal, secondly, flotation of the currency. Since that time, I think Nigeria has since gone back, Nigeria has since embraced managed float, unlike absolute flotation, which many of us condemn because of the kind of economy that we have. Our economy cannot run purely on, what do we call it now? Demand and supply, and say that government will do nothing.
So are you saying that we're kind of defending the naira smartly when it's necessary?
That's the best thing. That's what all nations do. All nations that have studied, that are prosperous. Okay, let me ask you, UK in 2020, 2021, 2022 had pounds devalued badly. How come the pound found its way back to that point? Why is it that anytime you saw UK pound have issues, it will always go back to the same position? Why is it not going back to the position that Kenya shillings always find itself, Nigeria naira find itself, South African local currency find itself, Ghana cedi? Why is UK always going back? Because you have to be tactical. See, currency exchange is everything. I understand that Nigeria has badly managed economy because of printing of currency that we saw under ways and means, trillions of naira pump into the economy without putting them in investment. If this money had gone into infrastructure or there were money that we have earned, it might be another kettle of fish. Now, still on the reasons why, the implication of holding rates. It has a number of implications. So maybe central bank have thought of all of those things, and I mean monetary policy committee have thought of those things. Now we have new set of heightened insurgency, and we call it durable disorder. Nigeria is not the only country facing durable disorder. And what do we mean by durable disorder? We have seen, you know, insurgents having that boldness to come on social media to even reveal their faces. It's scary. Yeah. But Nigeria is not the first country. We've seen that in the Middle East, in some part of the Middle East. We've seen it in some part of even Africa, where insurgents reveal their faces. They are so emboldened. But I am happy that at least some of the children that were kidnapped, we've been able to recover some. And I know that authorities, the Nigerian military, Nigerian army, and the Nigerian government is also trying to bring back some of these children. And I think that
yeah, and
I think that in ending this, it's important for us to go all out in protecting the sovereignty. So why they might have to consider all of this, it might be a volatile season to say you want to reduce rates or you want to increase it. Well, whether that is the best decision or not is a different question, because this has implication on private sector, which means cost of borrowing will still be relatively high, you know, compared to what many would expect, that if MPC reduces MPR and maybe one or two other parameters, that may make cost of borrowing to be cheaper. And when you reduce cost of borrowing, what that will mean is that it will help to increase growth. There will be expansion in the economy. That perhaps is what many may be expecting. But when you look at the reality of now and what has happened in the short space of time of about 1 month, then you know that you cannot totally fault MPC for holding rates yesterday.
Okay, so I believe that there is some sort of politicking as regards to these numbers. That's what I believe in. The last time we had you here, I know I tried to put you on the spot, and you say you have some friends in government. Let me ask you, as an economist, when you look at the numbers, do you believe those numbers? Because you've said clearly here that some analysts and experts believe perhaps it should have been reduced or increased. So, but do you believe that number? Do you think there's nothing perhaps unconnected with the fact that we are building up to an election year in just a few months
and we need to make the number look good? So I can help you ask the question directly. See, I'm going to answer you really very direct. Why? You see, for most people, most Nigerians, what NPR is does not really matter for most Nigerians. But for those of us in research, for academia, for people in the markets, when I say market, I mean capital market and all those, they need to know, because if NPR, we have impact on the banking sector, it will have impact on our financial system. I think that's the right phrase to use. It will have direct impact on it. Now, are we saying that this number are by design or by nature? So you need to look at the two extremes. When inflation number was reduced, many people felt they've lost confidence. So this is what Nigerians need to know. With the new base year, the numbers are real, because we have changed the base year. With the new base year, the numbers are real. And for those watching us all over Nigeria and all over the world, if you're a woman, chances are high that you have checked mirror or your mirror in the last 24, 48 hours. The numbers, the statistical number of a nation is the mirror of that nation. So because we change it and it's not reflecting absolutely in the life of people that inflation has halved between March till now, that is why people have that concern. It is not necessarily because we just want the number to look good. It is so because we change the base year. Now, should Nigeria change the base year? Nations change their base year every 5 years, some every 10 years. it is not wrong. What may give us challenge is the year we chose. The year we chose is a year that economic activity was generally weak. So if you have chosen a year that economic activities is generally weak, when you now have little improvement, it will be magnified. I don't know if you follow that. It will look as though things are so good, but they may not necessarily be as good. That is why when people check their personal inflation as to what they experienced before and what they're experiencing now, they look at the number moving down so sporadically, but they are looking at their life, that the inflation numbers, for them, the experience is not moving down so sporadically. But we're going to get to all of this by April next year, where we will now be dealing with the same base year, comparing the same thing, because now we are comparing new base year with the old base year. It's like we have shifted the goalpost. So you cannot say a striker that's shot about 2 meters or 5 meters away, to go to another pitch and be shooting at about 10 meters or 15 meters away. It's not absolutely the same thing. So you may not do that comparison very well. So that is why things are not, the numbers is not agreeing. It is not necessarily because we want things to look good. Now, yesterday somebody asked me that, does that mean that the projection of Mr. President of 15% inflation at the end of the year, maybe that is what we walk to the answer? I said there are two different things. When the Mr. President said that when he presented the budget, it was old base year. If you use that number today, inflation will still be around 28% if you are using the old base year. But we are using the new base year. Whether they had a talk behind, that budget was presented, I'm not privy to that. But when you are using the new base year, I can tell you that inflation may even get to about 14% at the end of the year. But does that mean that quality of life would improve between beginning of the year till now? It's not going to be in the same volume or in the same space as we have seen inflation reduce. But I must also acknowledge that some food items, because we also pick numbers in the market, some food items has reduced, even though not all, but some that have reduced must be mentioned and must also be recognized.
The food elements in the Koi Cup, which is about 13 divisions, has almost, it was about 51%.
Yes.
They reduced it about 40-something and then added some to restaurant and all of that, which I've always argued against most of the time. But there's a part I would like you to speak to. Of course, I know why Kelly was asking that question, because when the elections are coming on by December, when the APC will start talking, they'll say, we'll bring it down to 15. And we brought it down to 15.
That argument will not be right.
No, of course.
That argument will not be right, because the base year has no effect.
Yeah, I understand perfectly. So it's people like you and I that are correct to say, no, it's not the same base year. But politics, anything that works works. You can't argue with politicians when it comes to this thing. So we'll leave that to the realm of politics. But what I'm interested in, I think we're speaking with the DG of NECA, and we want to reconcile these numbers with the reality of the market. As you said rightly, financial market responds to numbers. Of course, the exchange rate also is, because I know that, for instance, in other climes, as soon as you cut rate, the currency gets weak, at least on the instant, because you're expanding the economy. So people will go to where they have where they have better interest on whatever investment, whether it's a long-term bond and all of that. Where I'm going to with this is the NECA boss, we were talking here, and he said to the fact that inventory to the tune of about 1 trillion still held up in warehouses, but we're seeing all these record numbers. Can you help us reconcile all of that? Well, it looks like purchasing power has dropped, inventory still stock up, yet inflation is coming down.
See, when you apportion the impact of real economic activity on inflation, like I said, inflation will be around 27-28%. But when you look at base year effects, what you are comparing with, inflation will give you 16.05%. To that extent, I cannot fault the Bureau of Statistics, because they've made it open that we have changed the base year. That announcement came from the Statistician General that said that, see, what we are comparing before has changed. So people should not think that the prices will change. So, and I respect the position of the NECA boss. What he mentioned is correct. Purchasing power has been affected. Why? Because when you look at income, the movement in income and movement in costs, they are completely at variance. The minimum wage is about 70,000 naira, and we have also seen that the number released by World Bank regarding the number of people that became poor, and World Bank called it the effects of reforms that is necessary for Nigeria to go through those effects. I think they quoted 139 million people, according to the World Bank. So, but when you look at this is a part of population we call Nigerian market. Because when you put everybody together, about 230 million people, you say is the market size of Nigeria. But of that 230 million people, World Bank is saying that perhaps 139 million are living below the poverty line of $2.15, and even said that a number a bit below that are living in absolute poverty. So here is it. Even though we have these numbers, huge numbers, and they are not able, the effectiveness of this number to demand is really low. So how come inflation is reducing? The Bezier effect. Bezier effect is the main reason why inflation is reducing, but not the only one. Stability of exchange rate. And I must give kudos to the central bank governor, because we have been able to move up our foreign reserve significantly. We have nearly a year cover now, which gives confidence to investors. Now, what if central bank has reduced interest rate? If they have reduced interest rate, it has its own side effect too. Investors who would have preferred to buy Nigerian bond and Nigerian bills, foreign investors, might feel that, oh, the interest is going to reduce. And they have option to go to another market. Those that bought before might also go to another market. In order for us to keep building the reserve might be the reason. But that has side effects. Because when the interest rates are high, it crowds out employment. See, economy is an interesting course, because it's a course of trade-offs. You cannot eat your cake and have it. So it's either we say we want to build reserve, or we want to expand the economy.
So in simple terms, it's either I like when we talk numbers and technical stuff, we give the benefit of doubt to what we call frame of reference, general frame of reference. So it's like saying, let's make our house very beautiful, even though we don't have enough food inside the house. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, in a way, yes. Even though we don't have enough food, but you see, if the fiscal authority and trade authority can do their part, fiscal authority, you see, I mentioned something yesterday. We hear monetary authority perhaps every 2 months. They come out, they tell us this is what we are fixing rate, we want to expand the economy, we want to contract the economy. Fiscal authority, and fiscal authority is not limited to federal government. Fiscal authority even has government inside. That's the government of states and federal. We only hear them once a year when they present the budget, because that's the biggest budget.
They are doing it now.
They are, okay.
A lot are
presented yesterday.
So when they present it once, then what happens to trade authority? We even speak less of trade authority. So until we have that interaction among the three legs that drives the economy, CBN will be they might be meeting, they might be talking, that is not in public domain. But for those of us who watch the economy, it's important for us to know, so that we can also put our commentary in perspective to say that this is what fiscal authority is doing. Because at the end of the day, when we see the numbers, we are going to plot them, we are going to put them on our model and check whether this is rightly affecting our economy or is not rightly affecting our economy. So sometimes economies try to design, they try to present their nation's number as though they are good. If they work towards it, they will achieve it.
Okay.
But if they don't, unfortunately, it might take them back.
Yes. And that leads me to my next question, really. I mean, you and Jeff are enjoying all of the technicalities. But see, for the average Nigerian man, we don't care about these technicalities. What we want to hear and see is that we have value for the small money that we have. What we want to hear and see is that we can afford 3 square meals and we don't have to plan, or we don't have to have headaches when our wives ask us for monies. So let me ask you, because you have mentioned that economists, people are the watchers of the economies of the nations. What's your projection for our GDP growth outlook, for instance, for 2026? And then, Mr. President, it's been 2 years down the line or more since he said subsidy is gone. And he puts millions of Nigerians where we are today. Are there better days ahead? That's what Nigerians want to hear. Are there better days ahead? Are we coming to a point where, since they say there's light at the end of the tunnel, we've been waiting, we're in that tunnel, When will we get to the light?
We'll see the switch very soon. So that's a question you've asked. And your question speaks to the essence of economists. In fact, why we have gone to schools of economics, whether in Nigeria or abroad, is the question you asked. Any economist that cannot speak directly to those questions has failed ab initio. The reason why we exist is that question you asked. What will be the impact on the people? Living standard is the most important question every economist are always eager, and I will respond to it. You see, the nature of economies vary. Nigeria economy is completely different from an American economy. It's completely different from the Chinese economy. Until we build our economy to reflect the numbers and our growth rates, we will keep managing the number and arranging it to appear in certain ways. What should we do? Manufacturing. You see, when we focus all our energy on manufacturing, and by that I mean the state government and the federal government, first we need to have coordination. For instance, what are the things that we import the most, that we consume the most? Can we produce them locally? People say that, you know, some economists have said, which of course, there is a South Korean economist that have actually countered that argument, that let us have comparative cost advantage. If Nigeria can produce crude, don't worry, don't have refineries. Let countries that have refineries keep refining. There are a lot of assumptions that are wrong. I'm happy that a South Korean economist have come to say that this is making a developing nation remain poor. Look at Dangote refinery. He has defiled it. Do you know that some of the gains we have in our reserve, and the gains we have in our GDP is because of Dangote refineries? So when you see some association trying to fight it, I hope they know the meaning of what they are doing. I just hope they know. I'm not supporting monopolies, and many people know my position. So if you want to have other refineries, please, can you support them to have, instead of fighting him or fighting the refinery? Because the benefit, even if you are not buying PMS from him, the benefit is far-reaching to you, to why you can still have exchange rate at that number. People say, well, why does exchange rate not matters? It matters because 50% of your urban life is imported. So does that mean that Nigeria don't create jobs? The answer is no. We create jobs. But guess where our jobs goes to? Where you got eyeglasses from, even though you might have bought it in a mall, in Ikeja, or in a shop in Ikeja. But where did they get it from? They had imported it. Their suit, all our suit, perhaps are imported. Yeah. Our buttons are imported. Your wristwatch are imported. Everything we have are imported. And Mr. Geoffrey, I know your name, but if his name is Tokumbo, that means you are also imported into Nigeria. So what does that mean? If we keep importing, we are giving jobs to people abroad, either in China or in India or in London. How do we take the job home? That's where we need our governors. That's where we need our president. That's where we need our legislatures. We must look at it. These places that insurgents are taking over as their own, because we have to connect this. I mentioned durable disobedience. I mean, this durable disorder, you know, when I started speaking with you this morning. Can we convert some of these places to farm and set up processing plants in all of these places? Provide soldiers. Now, when there are no activity, after a while, the soldiers will be tired. They want to retreat, and insurgents will go back. Okay. Can we start taking them over one after the other and making them production zones, production center? What will that do? One, you are going to see reduction in insecurity. Two, you are going to see improvement in employment. Three, you are going to see reduction even in inflation. Four, you are going to see expansion in your economy. Five, you are going to see major growth. You are going to see development. You will now see that lead to export. By that way, people will not ask questions about living standard. People will know that we have created a standard that will make quality of life improve, and Nigeria will not be majorly a country designated as a nation of a country of particular concern, but a nation that is helping the rest of the world.
Dr. Paul, I will not forgive myself if I don't ask you this question. First, another thing we're actually waiting for. I don't know why the MBS has not released that number to us. I think the last one I have is 2023, which is the National Living Standards Survey. That gives a clear picture of the quality of lives of Nigerians. If they bring that right now, I'm sure it's going to be very bad. So perhaps it's why it's good this video. But at least let's understand, because the reason why, whether it's good or bad, it's important we have these numbers. Melekiare was vilified and all of that, yes, with all the things that were said. But if there's anything I commend Melekiare was for the fact that at least we have numbers to speak to on how good or bad the NMPC was doing, because he started giving us audited reports. So we need those numbers. But where I'm going to, the last question will be on this is subnationals. subnationals have not lived up to their bid. What can be done? Because every day we're bashing the president, the ministers, and all of that. But we have seen record FAC numbers. Record FAC numbers. In fact, initially, what the federal government used to do is to hold back so that there's not too much liquidity in the system. But we're not seeing it reflect. I don't know whether it's corruption or poor thinking. I don't know what it is in terms of. So maybe you help us what the subnationals can do in like 2 minutes. So, for instance, a state like, with the greatest sense of respect, a state like Bayelsa State, for the longest time I have known, Bayelsa State has always been almost number one on the most dependent state on FAC, based on budget. Their data they release on how dependent each state is on FAC. Sometimes they're as high as 80-something, sometimes they're high as 90-something%.
Very low IGR.
Yeah, so, yes, IGR is nothing to write home about. So, and it's not just Bayelsa. Over maybe almost 30 states of Nigeria have that problem. How do we resolve this?
Now, first of all,
you can do it in 2 minutes. I know the question was long.
Let me first speak to MBS. And I think you raise an important question. But also to balance it, the budget allocation to MBS is very low. If you truly want to have all the numbers, Nigerian governments, we need to allocate more funds to MBS so that we can now hold them responsible. But when you look at what is in the budget for MBS and the number they are presenting to sample the entire federation, you know that we have a lot to do. So that's why you have some international organization partner with them, and they say who pays the piper dictates the tone. Well, I'm not going to say more than that.
1 minute.
I'm not going to say more than that. Now to speak to the subnational, there are a lot to say, but perhaps I will pick one of the several point I should have said. Who can help us here is civil society. The way we have civil society concentrate on the Abuja and FCT and federal government, we need to start thinking, myself inclusive, we need to start thinking one state after the other or geopolitical zone after the other. We have a lot of states, about 36 plus 1 that we are looking at. So it's not going to be easy to have the number. Budget, incidentally, has found a session of these two, which I think they've carved the quality session that all of us can depend on. There is no need repeating what Onigbide is doing and start repeating it. They've done, so we can look at other parts and start bringing that to the force. And I must also give credit that there are a few of them that I've seen that are doing something good. Not all, at least about 7 of them that I've seen that are doing relatively well. But you see, if you don't ask questions, citizens at the subnational, they don't ask. And if they ask, they only say it in their local media. They have not elevated it to this national platform that we have. If you say it, if channels say it, it's everywhere in Nigeria. So perhaps we need to look at how do we elevate those conversations from local level to a national level so that we can beam light on all of those.
I know that when I call places like Bayelsa and the rest, they will say restructure Nigeria and see whether Nigeria will not.
No, you start now. Let's see what you can do now.
Dr. Paul Alaji, always a delight to have you. It's an ongoing conversation. The tax year is almost upon us.
Yes.
And the elections are almost upon us. So we're going to be bringing you a lot to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flavio.
We'll take a break. When we come back, Southwest governors met on Monday for what they call the DAWN development agenda for Western Nigeria. The commission chairman will be joining us to bring us up to speed as to those far-reaching resolutions they made. In just a moment, stay with us.